Welcome back to our live stream. And if you saw my short, I'm in Tennessee. We are in Pigeon Forge for our little holiday, having a tender Tennessee Christmas. Or I guess we could say we were having a tender Tennessee Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So I've been crocheting, I've got the candles going, and just really trying to restore after that fall. My goodness, wasn't that a heavy fall that we had? I do not have my lav mics with me today, but I won't be moving around a lot. So today's format, because I'm not at the shop sewing, today's format is Q&A format. I mentioned it in the community tab and a few other places. But if you have any questions, you can also just drop them in the comments here. Let me know if you can hear me okay. But the question that I really wanted to address, and oh man, when this question came through, I was like, I could do my entire call on this one question. So that's what I want to focus on. But again, I'm happy to take other questions. But the question was concerning beadwork. They were asking specifically, I think they put it in the community tab, they were asking specifically about beading like a boned corset. I think it was something like that, like I guess the idea is a finished piece of clothing, formal wear that has boning and is kind of stiff and hard to get to. That was kind of the point of what they were getting at. So whether it's a corset, a gown, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The point was that it was boned and has a lot of structure. How do you bead it after the fact? So the short answer is I like to get the like the long beading needles. So they're long and very thin. You can hardly even see the eye on them. They're so thin. And then I like to bend them. So it's going to be shaped more like this. Okay. And you could have this be the point or this be the threading end. That's probably more likely what I would do. And this technique comes from more like upholstery sewing where they've got like the hooked or the half circle needles. It's very helpful. So I like the really thin ones, the beading needles. Rather than the other direction you can go in is get a stiffer, shorter needle that can really penetrate and go through, manipulate the fabric to get it through, and then use beads that have a larger hole that you can run that through. But with the beading needle, you can use the finer beads, the seed beads and whatnot. And you can just kind of put it in and it automatically comes back up because of the way it's curved. So I just hand curve them. I don't buy curved needles. So that's the short answer for that. But what happened was when I read the question, my mind kind of springboarded to kind of more like bead design. I wanted to talk about that because I thought, we do most commonly see a specific type of bead design. And I wanted to talk about why, so that if you are beading a bodice for a client and you get to design the way you're going to bead it, you'll know which ways work, okay? The idea about bead design is, let's write this down. I'm so sorry for all the sounds. We've got barking dog. We have got someone who's very enthusiastic about their leaf blowers today. I mean, we're in the woods in Tennessee. I don't understand why they're doing that. But anyways, let's talk about beading designs. If you're going to design the beadwork on a bodice, okay? What do you think you're going to be going for here? It's all the little embellishment that you want to do on here, okay? What are you going to be going for? Our goals are to make the threads not noticeable. don't know if I'm spelling that right. So what you don't want is thread, bead. Let's do a bicone. Bead. And then let's do another, like, let's say a larger bead. Like one of those real kind of cushioned looking ones. Okay, and then thread. This is what we don't want. All right, so we want lots of sparkle. We want variation. Sparkle Sewing Cottage. Variation. Okay. And guys, the dog barking, that is Smokey, and there's a squirrel outside. I hope he's not too distracting for you. Okay, so we want repetition with the threads unnoticeable. That's kind of the biggest thing. So this is the way I want you to think about it, okay? You're going to be going from here in the fabric up to your beadwork back in. And the reason why you get a lot of threads showing is if there's too large of a stitch for the total width of the beads, obviously. But the other thing is it's usually found right in this vault right here when you're vaulting from the fabric up into the beadwork. Okay? So, hello, Jane. Hello, Victoria. This is where we typically see the threads showing, right? So when I talk about repetition, what I'm thinking about is if you're going to make a flower with these radials, every flower is going to have that same exact bead pattern, okay? Whatever you design to do, you're going to do that over and over. We're not going to do a bunch of random stuff, okay? If you're going to scatter bead, you're going to have the same repetition over and over. You're not just going to be like, oh, let's put a pearl here, couple seed beads here. Oh, what's this random thing? Add it here. You want everything to kind of have a rhyme or reason. So that way, if your flowers look one way, your leaves are going to look another way. You're going to always stick with that, okay? But this is the part that I really wanted to take a deep dive into today. And again, don't forget, you can drop a question in here if you want. Guys, we're almost to the new year. So don't forget, I was going to do my vertical live streams to the end of the year. And we've got Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve at the end of the year. I don't know that I'm even going to bother doing live streams on those days because most people won't be able to come. It's a holiday. So really, next week might be my last vertical live stream in this series. So we're closing toward the end here. See, Victoria, that sounds like a great plan. She's going to sit down and watch all the videos over Christmas break, wants to start doing alterations on wedding dresses. Girl, there's so much more money in that than there is replacing zippers on jackets and hemming pants and whatnot. All right, so let's get to this part, the threads unnoticeable. It is that vaulting up is where you see the threads most often. And this is why the most common, I guess, bead design in a stitch, the reason why we see it so often over and over, okay? This is the way it usually goes. Obviously you've got your thread, okay? But you've got a sequin, okay? And then it goes up into a very small seed bead, and the sequin covers the stitch, the small seed bead covers the turn, and then now you could go into, say, your larger bicone, okay? Back down to your seed bead, and then back down to some sort of disc or sequin. And that's how you're gonna get this arching here without the threads showing, okay? So this is why you're gonna see that over and over again. And that's what's missing here. So what's gonna get you into trouble is you don't have to have the sequins. There's a lot of beadwork that doesn't have sequins, but the sequins are lovely, okay? Let me tell you about sequins. Sequins cut. How many of you wore like homecoming or prom dresses or formal wear in the 80s or 90s and you went through this? And it goes like this, okay? You come up, you've got your some type of bead. Looks like we're doing s'mores. And then you've got your sequin wedged in there. You've got your next bead, and then you've got your going back down, okay? This is brutal. Do not ever do your beads like this. What you have is lots of threads showing. You've got where it's coming up out of the fabric showing. And this little disc that is formed by the sequin being held upright is going to shred your arms. So you know what I'm talking about. If you've worn a dress that was like this and they had the beadwork in the underarm area, you had little cuts all over your arms and they hurt so bad. Another type of beadwork that hurts really bad is they call them like shell beads. They almost have this jagged, somewhat multifaceted sides to it. They're very small, almost like a seed bead, just a little bit bigger than that. They're a little bit iridescent. Sometimes they're just as wide as they are round, but a lot of times they're slightly cylindrical. Okay, those hurt really bad in the underarms. A lot of my clients will have me remove them actually from the underarm area. So when I'm talking about that, I'm saying just through here, maybe through here. They want the beads removed from there, okay? Oh, that's fine, Jane. Sorry, Sparkle, don't know your name after 6 years following you. I go by the internet name of Brenda LaBolt, Bridal Sewing or Sparkle Sewing. And for that reason, a lot of people, like when they see me at conferences or whatever, they'll say, hey, Bridal. Almost like Bridal was my first name. But yeah, now we've gone through the rebrand and we're Sparkle Sewing. But I do still use the YouTuber internet name of Brenda LaBolt. Okay, Victoria is asking about anyone on TikTok. Okay, actually, let me tell you about Stacy. She might be on. Stacy, if you're on here, say hello. Stacy Reisner, she's in our community a lot of times, and she's on these calls a lot of times. But she does have a TikTok. So check her out if you're looking for a TikToker who sews. So she's really into the bridal sewing thing. All right, so this is a do not, okay? Let's talk about the do's and why they are okay. All right, so again, this is what you're wanting to design your bead design with, okay? Bead, that was terrible. Design criteria. All right, so you're going to have one thing that's going to cover your stitch, okay? And most often, this is going to be a sequin. Because they're flat. Okay? And you can do the cupped one or you can do the flat one. The cupped ones, that's what they're called, is cupped. They're the ones that are almost like multifaceted, like that. It's so cool. I have a job I get to draw. Okay, so you've got your flat sequins and you've got cupped. Okay. And guys, did you know they also have suede? Have you seen those? They also have the suede ones. I love those. They're kind of round, but they're a little bit thicker. And they're a nice soft base. And that's gonna give you lots of contrast, okay? So you're gonna start with that. And then you're going to have, oh shoot. Ah, hate that. You're gonna have your vaulting bead, okay? And this is usually a seed bead or shell bead, okay? So small and round-ish, all right? And you guys can drop questions in here if you want. Then you're gonna have your main bead. This is the one that's going to be the largest and sparkles. And it can also be several. Can be 1 or 3, etc. The reason why I'm saying 1 or 3 is we all know when it comes to design, the eyes love odd numbers. So it's just gonna look a little more like central and even. If you, let me put main beads. If you have like 3, if you do multiples, for some reason, it cheapens the look. Okay, and then you're gonna reverse. Okay, so we're gonna go reverse to the other end. For some reason, to me, it cheapens the look if the main beads are 2 beads, okay? So this is what we're gonna talk about. It's going to be, I'll draw it again. This can be, here's your stitch. You've got your sequin, our small little vaulting bead. It can be textured or sparkly or smooth, whatever. Then you're gonna go into your main beads. I just feel like this should be almost like one more size up. Maybe get into your bicone. This is gonna be your largest one that's central, right? Then we've got our other little one. And then we've got our sequin. All right, so this is a nice balanced look. So you see how we're going from flat to cover, our little vaulted bead to turn the corner, and then this is really what's on display is whatever you're putting into the center. So you could do 1, you could do 3. And again, it's just a design choice about the 2. Let me show you what I'm talking about, and you're gonna be like, that is what they put on those really cheap prom dresses or sheen dresses. They'll go like 1 sequin and then they come up. So you're seeing your stitch. And then they do like 2 beads and then they go back down and do this look. I know you guys have seen that a million times. That is so ugly and cheap looking compared to that. So let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. On a cheap dress, you'll see if there's a scatter bead done on a cheap dress, it's gonna be this, or it's gonna be, sometimes they think you're doing a favor because they are putting, it almost works like a vaulting bead. You'll see this a lot. And I've even done that myself. If you've got to really make tracks and get a lot of beads on a dress, that's going to look better than this. Just do 2 smaller and a center bigger one. You can scatter bead on that. But 3 beads the same size like this is actually not that super pretty. Yeah, that's right. You usually finish off the sequins. Let's see. When doing hand sewing, you can use a sewing embroidery thread or sewing machine thread. You could actually do both, but I find that the kind of like the multi-purpose Gutermann thread that I use on my machine, it's the Mara 100 that I use on my machine and hand sewing. I find that it does perfectly fine for beadwork. If I was not using that, I would switch over to a monofilament, a Gutermann monofilament. That's not going to be coming untwisted while you're doing your beadwork. Embroidery thread, I have personally found that some of the threads get broken by the sharpness of the center of the sequins, and then you've got twisting issues. So beadwork, you're going to be 1,000 times ahead if you just use like a monofilament, mono meaning one, right? So you don't have any of that twisting issue to deal with. 1,000 times ahead. If not, just go ahead and use a lot of beeswax, or you can use chapstick, actually. Just do some Burt's Bees or something and pull it across your lips. Let's see. You definitely, of course, don't want to do like, you know, get food or nothing nasty on it. But a lot of people, as you know, traditionally have pulled it across their lips and have beeswax on their lips. Let's see. Yeah, embroidery thread has like 3 strings. It can be problematic. Let's see. I don't like to use, Schmokey wants to come in. I don't like to use the invisible thread, Jane, because it tangles too badly. It's cold out, so he wants to come in. Yeah, it tangles really bad, knots up and stuff. So I'm not a big fan of that. And I do have videos on that as well. But if you're going to use invisible thread, you definitely have to do chapstick or wax. And I know that kind of grosses you guys out, but that's just kind of how it is. You going to say hi? Say hello. Say hello to everybody. There's Smokey. Say hello. There's my little project. Isn't that fun? Little snowballs. All right, let's see. Victoria says hello. All right, so I thought that would really bring some clarity for how to make sure your beadwork looks really pretty. So definitely just keep in mind the central stone is usually going to cost a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit bigger. So they go in graduating sizes. So you're going to start with a sequin, and they slowly get bigger. And I wouldn't use anything too angular for this vaulting piece. Usually it's just a little round seed bead, pearl, whatever. Yeah. And do you guys have any questions? If not, I'm going to hop off here. I do have my Sparkle membership call coming up in just a bit. Don't forget next week's vertical live stream. It's our last one of the series and last one of the year, because the other Wednesdays are going to be Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So it's just going to be this one, and then next week we'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, Gutermann, I see you guys chatting in there. Yeah, Gutermann is wonderful. Yeah. Well, you guys enjoy the early December days. It's so beautiful. Nice and cool. We're getting into winter. Let's see. Victoria, do you have to pick out a seam when sewing with beads? I'm assuming you're talking about clear away. Like, do we have to clear away the beads? So what I'm assuming she means is, like, let's say there's beads all over a dress, and this is our side seam. And let's say you have to take in the dress like this much. you would need to clear away all the beads that are here, plus whatever clearance your sewing machine needs to get through. And then after you sew it, you're gonna look at it, and if you do a really precise job of clearing away, it won't look like this. It won't look too overly cleared, and you'll just have to go in and add a few. So that's typically how we do that. But yeah, we have to clear things away, do our work, and then sew it back so it looks nice. You guys have a wonderful December week, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining me. Bye.